A new secret exotic mission is out, and that means a solo guide for you. The variable quest line is leading us to the Vexcaliber exotic glaive, which is a really cool glaive, but it's also a really cool mission that continues the story of Asher, Mir, and Brachian, who have been locked in a battle since the Pyramidian strike in Destiny 2 Vanilla. A really nice touch, Bungie. Let's show you how anybody can get this exotic glaive and get this mission complete. Not only can you use this guide for the normal mode, but you can also use it for the legendary mode where I solo flawlessed it, and the proof is on your screen right now. I use the same methods for both guides. The legendary version took just a little bit longer and I had to be more careful. Luckily, you don't have to flawless this to get the catalyst or just get the weapon itself. You just need to follow the steps in this guide. One quick thing is that there are no checkpoints in this mission, so you do need to make sure you set some time to get this done in one sitting. I've seen this done on multiple classes, but for me, I really prefer using my Solar Titan for a lot of stuff, but I have seen multiple classes do this, whether it's hunters, warlocks. The biggest thing you want to do is make sure that you have some kind of healing potential, whether that's using Cure with the hammer, or if you're using a healing grenade, or if you're using Devour. Potentially going invisible would be really strong for this as well. Here's my Solar Titan build. I'm basically just using my Syntheseps to get a lot of damage with my throwing hammer. I'm generating orbs of power by throwing my hammer or getting kills with void or kinetic weapons. And finally, I make sure that I have solar or void resist. For weapons, I'm going to be using the Osteostriga. I'm mainly using it for crowd control. There are a ton of mobs in this mission, and using the Toxic Overload trait where you land a final blow or multiple precision hits triggering a burst that poisons nearby targets is amazing. I'm using that in conjunction with the catalyst where poison final blows return ammo to the magazine. Sometimes I never have to reload this thing, which is absolutely insane. When we get to a specific spot in the boss fight, I'm going to switch to Wish Ender. There's a glitch right now that allows it not only to penetrate Brachian's shield, but it also does a ton of damage. And you'll see that in real time when we get to the boss. For the energy slot, I'm going to be using the Null Composure Fusion Rifle. You certainly could use something like a True Teller grenade launcher, like say for example, if you want the disorienting grenades. But I find that Void Fusions are really good. They're going to take advantage of the artifact pieces that I'm using together with Void, not only to rip off shields, but also to proc tons of volatile rounds, which is going to be really good for crowd control. After that, I'm using Commemoration, which is the machine gun from the Deepstone Crypt raid. If you don't have this, it is not the end of the world. You'll probably have to play just a little bit safer. If you've got the Retrofit Escapade, you could certainly use that if you'd like. You can get a lot of the same type of synergy between the two. However, this is an adaptive frame, it hits a little bit harder, and this has the rapid fire frame. Also, I'm using Killing Tally with Reconstruction, which will allow me to do a little bit more damage. But again, most of these other weapons are things that you can get. You do not have to have a Commemoration to make this work. It does make the damage a little bit easier to get, but Retrofit Escapade could be just as good, especially at the boss. For the artifact, I'm mainly using the Volatile Flow. Picking up Orbs of Power grants my Void Weapons volatile rounds. I'm going to be using that through the entire mission. In addition, Bricks from Beyond, defeating a powerful combatant with a void weapon has a chance to generate heavy ammo for you and your activities. These two things together are pretty much all you need. You can mess around with some of these other things, but those two are the main pieces that I'm using for this exotic mission. So the very first thing you're going to need to do is start the quest line off. Go to the EDZ and head to the Gulch. You need to pick up 6 Vex boxes that are scattered throughout the area. I'm starting from the landing zone and jumping over here to show you the order that I pick up the boxes, and I think this is the easiest way to follow along and figure out where you need to go. Very simple. You can just follow the path that you see here on screen. While I'm picking up these Vex boxes, I'm going to mention a couple of things about the video. There's really no class requirement that you need for this, although I would recommend some kind of healing, whether it's Devour or a Healing Rift, or potentially Cure if you're using a Solar Titan like I am. I'll be showing and mentioning some cheeses that I used in this video. You don't have to use them. I've completed it flawlessly without necessarily using those cheeses, but these make it much easier to do, and I would really highly recommend, if you want to save your time and energy, that you use those cheeses if you choose. Lastly, the only thing that's really different about the legendary version of this that you need to do to get the catalyst is that on legend mode it is 1830 and there are a ton more enemies, meaning that it's going to be significantly harder to do on your own. There are also a couple of more shields that you have to deal with, but overall, that's the major difference. All right, once you've picked up the 6 boxes, look for the Vex disturbance. There is a cave underneath that you go into, and there will be a bunch of caverns that will then open in front of you. Down below, there's going to be a harpy that many people believe is the new Asher Mir, or is just his emissary into the real world instead of the Vex network. Go ahead and hit that to start the mission. Once you've completed the mission once, there will be a node on the EDZ that you can just click into and access the master. For some parts of this video, I'm going to be using the normal gameplay, and some of it I'll be using the legendary version of the gameplay just to kind of show the two differences. In a lot of sections, the mission is exactly the same. There's really no major differences except the power level difficulty. For example, this first opening section, there's really no difference except that the harpies have shields and you take a little bit more damage from the Vex milk. I'm going to be showing you the first secret inside of the mission, which is this hidden compartment here. In a future week, we'll be able to access that or shoot the button that is hidden inside that. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just skip ahead here on this section and follow the path that you see here on screen. Here's our first snippet where we get to see Asher Mir hidden as the ghost in the machine throughout this entire mission. If you don't know, Asher Mir was the NPC on the planet of Io who often went into the Pyramidion, which was a Vex construct that held Brachian, who's going to be in this mission as well. So a very cool continuation of the story. So now we're at the first encounter. You'll see a bunch of enemies that you'll need to knock out before you can actually start the first encounter. Once you do that, the code sequence area will be activated and you'll see 3 symbols over to your right. You need to shoot them in order from top to bottom as they show up on the conflux. So first things first, kill the snipers that will be over on these sides on these platforms. Just double check them. And once you've done that, look at your symbols and then shoot them on the conflux. They're going to randomly spawn all around. You need to read them in order. So from top to bottom, that would be 2 diamonds and then a square. So I'm just looking for the shapes. When I'm done, I shoot the next couple of enemies and then I wait for the next symbol, shoot the square, and that will get us to the next access code. Every time you need to enter in a new access code, a bunch of new enemies will spawn up from the 2 portals. When you do that, you want to also be looking for the Minotaurs and the snipers. They will respawn and you will need to worry about them. So the positions of the next 2 codes are going to be on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, respectively. So the order is kill the snipers and Minotaurs, then look for the shapes, shoot them in order from top to bottom, kill the ads while shooting at them. That's the entire first encounter. That's everything you need to know. What's going to happen is that once you are done with the first room, you're going to move into the second room, which will be more challenging. There will be a couple more enemies and a couple of other things that you need to watch out for. As you turn the corner, the first thing you should be looking for is those Minotaurs and a Cyclops that will shoot you. Creep around the corner here and take out that Cyclops to the left-hand side. Remember I was mentioning enemy density? This is a prime example. There are tons of enemies in this area. This is why I really highly recommend using a Void LMG. Just using volatile rounds is going to be huge as you're clearing all these different enemies and those snipers. The snipers are probably the most important, followed by the Minotaurs. So the first set of symbols is on the left-hand side. You can kind of see them as I jump down there. The next set of symbols will be on the right-hand side, and there's going to be 4 of those symbols. The first set of symbols is 3, then it's 4, then it's 5. In this room here, there's a really good spot where you can't really get attacked by enemies too much in this corner right here. As long as you hug that corner in between shooting the different symbols and watch out for Minotaurs on the top, you should be fine. Now, at any point, if you feel like you are going to die or you're feeling challenged or you can't clear the ads or volatile rounds aren't proccing or something like that, pop your super, whatever it ends up being. Now, I do know that there's an issue with Well of Radiance right now. For some reason, standing in the Well of Radiance and then hitting enemies with weapons is not providing as much damage as it has in the past. Once you've put in all the codes, then a wave, and I'm talking waves of enemies are going to be coming at you. This is where that LMG with Void and the volatile rounds is going to be absolutely amazing. There are a couple of other choices of things you could use, like you use Thunderlord or something like that. But the main thing you want to do is take out those 2 wyverns because they will instantly kill you or they can boop you off on the map. It doesn't look like it, but there's a lot of little spots that you can get knocked off the edge. And you want to keep your distance so that they don't jump on you. Once you've done that, go around the corner, kill the rest of the enemies, and then move forward. The next part is pretty simple, just a little bit of a jumping puzzle. I'd also recommend, if you feel comfortable, having a sword for the next section. I'll talk about that as we get there. As a Titan, I'm turning on my Lion Rampants to help me with my jumping and my platforming because I'm trying to go for a flawless run, which I did do on this as well. The great thing for most solo players is that you don't have to do this flawlessly. There are a few timers in this exotic mission, but nothing really you have to worry about too much, but I'll show you that as we get there. So right here is the first part where it's very easy to die. This first block is very easy to get by, but this second block, you want to swing your sword as fast as possible because that block kicks out really fast. At this point, just turn, kill this little harpy that's looking at you, and then you'll want to do the same thing again here. It looks like you've got plenty of time, but you really don't. You get pushed out if you're not ready to go. You don't need any special sword for this. Just make sure you have a little bit of ammo just to get by that main first one, and you're in good shape. Now we're in the second encounter. This is the part where you're going to need to deposit data, and then you're going to need to take shelter. This is again where the Void LMG with volatile rounds is going to be amazing. Any of the Vex goblins that are headless are going to provide these pink motes that you need to pick up and then deposit in the conflux that is in the middle. Once you've picked up enough, then you'll be able to drop down and keep yourself from being deleted. Now, a key thing, even though the area and the shelter opens up, that does not mean you are safe. That means that at 10 seconds on the clock, there are going to be wyverns that are going to spawn up, and they can easily kill you in this shelter, which I discovered a couple of times when doing the run. Anyways, what you're going to do is do that 2 times. You're going to do that cycle 2 times, depositing motes. And once you do that, you can then get to a damage phase where a Vex Hydra is going to come out and try to kill you. And there are a ton of harpies that are also going to be there. Osteo is not only good at killing all of them very quickly, but it also provides a lot of heavy ammo, which will allow you to do damage to the boss very easily. Just basically use Osteo, kill all the enemies that you can. It'll provide some heavy ammo for you, and you're in good shape. Once you've done half of the damage on the bosses, they'll then move to the next section, which is just the same as before. The biggest things that I would recommend as you're doing this is look for those Vex hobgoblins that are trying to snipe you and kill them with your heavy weapon. Don't mess around with them. The faster you can deal with them, the better. And then make sure you get to the conflux. And this is something that I started doing on my solo run, is I'd run around, but then I'd put up a shield for just a second, make sure I have the void weapon boost on my armor, as well as volatile rounds, and then killing the wyvern in cover with the fusion rifle. It's really nice. And it also helps to do a lot of damage on the boss. The null composure coming in clutch. Again, it's not required, but it does make things a little bit easier. One of the differences between the normal and the legendary mode is that on the legendary mode, as I've stated before, they are much more lethal, and you do not want to get stuck outside of cover. So one of the things I highly recommend is to go to the area where there are 2 ramps that go up, and then there are 2 gates inside. You can see it here on screen. Use this area here for cover. I don't like the lower area at all. You want to force the enemies to come up to you. You want to have the high ground. Now, just because you have the high ground doesn't mean that they won't chase you, especially as you get to some of the harder parts here. The Minotaurs will actually start to chase you, and they can easily kill you. Also, in the legendary mode, do not go after the wyverns with a fusion rifle. In fact, you should try to hide from them, hide behind a shield, make sure you have a healing grenade, or even pop your super if you need to. You can see here in this clip how much damage the boss actually takes and how crazy the enemies are when they spawn up on the legendary mode. They are very aggressive and they will attack you at any moment's notice, so clear them as much as possible. With me, I'm making sure that I proc my healing as much as possible on these smaller ads. When I go after the boss to do damage, I do not overextend. If I'm at half life, I do not look at the boss at all. In fact, for some sections, if I don't have a healing grenade or a hammer or something that I can use to heal myself, I will not extend until those abilities come back if you want to go for a solo flawless or you want to get this done. Once you're done with that, you'll go past this section here, and then I'm going to switch and make sure I've got my jumping puzzle pieces on, and then we're going to head down below. Now, there is a cheese for this where you can jump straight down below and get down to the boss area, but just in case that they patch that for some reason, I'm going to show it normally. What you do on the cheese is you basically jump down and catch yourself inside of the lip of the area, so I'll turn around and show you. So you basically just go inside of that first ring there, and then you jump down and basically you're in the boss area. But again, if they patch the cheese, that is one thing you can do. And also, this area here is not too crazy. There's just a little bit of jumping. In addition, if you do that cheese, you potentially will miss out on a secret if you do this in future weeks, which I'll be covering here in a second. These blocks are very similar to the blocks that we had before. Just make sure you're crouching down below and you'll be fine. Now, remember I mentioned secrets. If you look up here, there is a block that is immune. I've actually shot it with Vexcaliber and it hasn't done anything yet. Again, make sure that you've got your jumping boots on, because there's a couple of funky little jumps here that can easily kill you. Now, remember I was talking about the cheese being not necessary right there. It wasn't a very long section. If you're going for a speed run or something like that, you could definitely use that cheese, but otherwise you're good to go. For those of you who've played the vanilla version of D1 and know the Pyramidion Strike, you are greeted by our familiar friend Brachian. The only difference here is that there's 3 different levels instead of just 1 level that we're all together, and we're also going to be dealing with a lot more Vex enemies than in the past. Here's how the fight goes. There's 3 levels, and you need to clear each level before you can get to the next, which is pretty obvious. Brachian will spawn up a bunch of these Vex enemies, and what you'll need to do is deal with them and then deal damage to him. What I like to do is get whatever I can to make orbs of power, which will then give me volatile rounds as well as a void weapon boost, whether that's killing them with a void weapon or hitting them with a hammer or whatever you choose to do with your armor setup. And then what I'm going to do in this first level here is hide and get as close as I possibly can to him so I can do as much damage as possible. Shooting him in the head as much as possible here is really good. You can also use a lot of heavy ammo here because you can use Osteo again to generate lots of heavy ammo. He can stomp you when you're down here, as you can see here on screen, but just keep your distance and you should be fine. If you see the laser charging, just duck for a second and you should be fine. This first area is not too bad, except that there are wyverns that will spawn up on the opposite side of the minotaurs. They'll start to chase you a little bit, but what you can do is take out the wyverns, then the minotaurs, and then he will actually start teleporting around the room as well. It's a big triangle, and as you do more damage to him, he'll start to teleport and get more enemies. For example, I believe at like half damage, he definitely spawns in a wave of enemies, and as far as I can tell, there's no way to skip it. There's always been 3 waves of enemies that I've had to deal with. Now, if a wyvern is getting really close to you, use your super or use your heavy weapon to knock out the Hydra. They are the #1 reason why people die on this. Once that's all done, then you're going to go ahead and kill the rest of the enemies. I would use Osteo as much as possible to generate as much heavy ammo before you go into the room. Of course, pop the shields of any of the minotaurs that are around. But if you use Osteo, you can basically just keep a distance and make a lot of heavy ammo. Very simple. You can see on the legendary mode that you're going to take a lot more damage, especially from like 1 or 2 shots from Brachian. It's the same exact process. Let Brachian move, spawn up the ads, take care of the wyvern, but the wyvern is going to take a lot more shots and you're going to have to do a lot more damage to the boss. In this time, the ads are going to be chasing you more aggressively. Let Osteo do its thing, and it does it well. Never let Brachian have a clean open shot to you, because if he sees you, he will take it. Also, don't be afraid of using your fusion rifle or your special weapons here on any of the minotaurs. You do not want to die in this precarious position because they will chase you and they will be aggressive. When you're all clear, go through the portal to the next section. Now, this is where you need to switch to Witch Ender, and this is a glitch that is going on right now. You do not have to do this. You could use anything else if you wanted to, but I would recommend just sticking with Osteo if they do fix this glitch. In this new area, there's going to be a Vex Hydra and then 2 wyverns that will be chasing you throughout the map. Kill the wyverns as quickly as possible, and then as soon as you kill the Hydra, there's going to be 2 Cyclopses that are going to spawn up on the side of the map. You want to knock them out as quick as possible. If you're noticing how much damage that my Wish Ender is doing, you will see why I am mentioning this glitch. What I'm going to do is basically 2-tap them with a primary weapon very easily, as long as I don't hit the immune shots. It's clear that Wish Ender's damage is bugged, and you can use it to your advantage while you can. Once you've killed the Hydra, then the code symbols will appear and you repeat the process as you did in the past. Once you clear the symbols, Brachian will be out of his cage, but we don't want that for right now. We're going to actually do damage to him since Wish Ender has intrinsically built into it anti-barrier. I can actually get him to the final damage phase here just by shooting him with my Wish Ender. Again, it's bugged. It does not take very long to do. Once you've gotten him to the lowest possible level and he's hitting immunes, then clear all the symbols like you did in the past couple of encounters. Take out these Cyclopses before you move down over to the next section, and then you are good to go into the final room. The final room is probably the most challenging. Before you do go in, make sure you're stocked up on heavy and everything is reloaded. Switch back to your Osteo. You will need it. When you get into this room, there is not a lot of cover, and now Brachian is just straight up chasing you, which makes things kind of a nightmare. If you're looking at all the different corners you could go to and for cover, there really isn't any except for one spot. If you go immediately to your left, there's really no cover here. We're going to go check the other corner, which would be to your right as you're spawning into the room. Again, there's no cover. In fact, it's kind of worse because there's a wall that you can easily get killed by, and then if you stand in the Vex milk, you're toast. However, if you turn right back around the area where you spawned in from, there is an amazing spot that you can just basically hang here, and Brachian can't come up to this spot and chase you, and neither can any of the other enemies. What's even better is that the Vex milk actually acts as a large piece of cover. Like, check this out. I'm going to shoot around the corner here. I can't actually shoot it because there is the Vex milk. Make sure you don't step in it, of course. But you can actually just chill here, kill the enemies at your leisure, and then step away from Brachian. Use these large pools for cover and kill him at your leisure. If you want to pop your super, you certainly can to make things go a little bit faster, or you can just hit him with your LMG or your heavy weapon of choice. You can just literally just chill there. It's very easy to do. I wouldn't even call this a cheese. This is just using the environment that Bungie has provided. Very easy way to knock this out. Very easy to clear Brachian and get your Vexcaliber solo in a very, very easy way. Now, if this does change, I will be making a fresh video, so you'll want to make sure you get subscribed for that, just in case you miss any of those details. But you're not done getting Vexcaliber yet. When you do this for the first time, you're going to see a sword that you're going to draw. You'll also get some other rewards. I'm just showing my solo flawless clear on this. You will then need to go into the helm and go to the war table where there will be the variable quest there, and that is where you pick up your Vexcaliber, which is already crafted for you when you pick it up. And this will give you the continuation of the Vexcaliber quest line, which you'll need, which is the catalyst and more. If you want to see the flawless legendary version of this, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. If you need any help, come on over to twitch.tv/ManoDestra, where I do tons of helps from exotic missions, raids, dungeons, grandmasters, and more. Make sure to check out the community Discord down below. Good hunting, Guardians. I'll see you next time.